So, good afternoon to all of you, and good evening, good morning, whatever you may be. So, today we are again meeting each other in our penultimate series of this discussion regarding Raga-vartma-candrika, the moon ray, which illuminates the path of Raga. So, today is meeting number 28, and we will be discussing the last part of verse number 7 of this second section of the book. We already studied this 7th verse or prose in the two previous lectures, and today will be the third lecture spent in this direction and the last one. And next class we will have our final meeting with the very last verse of the second section of Raga-vartma-candrika, the 8th one. So before starting, as usual today, let's make some brief recap of what we were seeing last week, the second part of this 7th verse of this second illumination of the Raga-vartma-candrika, where Vishwanath is, along the 7th verse, pounding the similar post, a very similar idea, which is the requirements, the prerequisites for one to enter into the Aprakat Lila, and that is to be born in the Prakat Lila first, and becoming imbibed with some scars coming from the association of Nitya Parishats and so on. And he will present the topic and analyze, discuss it from different angles, presenting different possibilities, arguments, and so on. So the first section we shared last class, which Another was presenting one possible question, which was, can it be said that upon leaving his present body as sadhaka, who has attained prem, directly receives the form of the gopi in the unmanifest braj, without taking birth from the womb of the gopi? And then, through the association of the eternal and perfected gopis, she attains the different moods of sneha and so on. And Vishwanath himself replied to his question saying, the answer here is no, that will not happen, because without taking birth from the womb of a gopi, one cannot get a proper acquaintance with the human-like pastimes there. Without taking birth from the womb of a gopi, one cannot answer questions like, whose daughter is this Saki, and whose daughter-in-law and whose wife is she? And then he says a further question may arise in this connection, which is what is the harm if one says that they directly take birth in the braj located in the spiritual world? So the answer is, again, Vishwanath mentions, no, that's not possible, because sadhakas and mundane people cannot enter Aprakat Vrindavan, which is inaccessible to the material world. Only siddhas, perfected ones, can enter there, for that realm is known as pure Siddha Bhumi, or the world of the perfected ones. So here again, Vishwanath continues to further unfold his main point, which was already presented from the very beginning of this verse, which is having birth in the Prakat Lila. So he presents the first Purvapaksha here, the first possible argument. Why not a premika, someone who attained prem, can be directly born in the Aprakat Lila, directly in Golok Vrindavan, and then being there cultivate whatever refinement of prema is there, missing, remaining. So Vishwanath he presents the idea, no, that cannot be possible, because in order to participate officially, fully in the ultimate, if you will, expression of Lila, one needs certain acquaintance with the specifics of one's own identity in Lila. Where is my village, which is my father, my mother, in the context of being a gopi in this case, who is my husband, and so on. We gave the famous examples of Shiva trying to enter Rasa Lila, and Lakshmi herself, but not being fully acquainted with these details, and this creating some problems, if you will. And the main point here is that nobody is born in the Aprakat Lila, not even Krishna. Everyone is already there. So the point is that for being there, first you have to be born in the Prakat Lila and get acquainted with all these cultural, if you will, details of the village and family members and so on. And then one will appear in the Aprakat when the moment comes, not being born there. All this information of birth and so on, that comes in the Prakat Lila. And then a second Purvapaksha was included in this section, which was mainly, the implication was, in the scripture, Jiva Goswami himself, it says that both the Aprakat Lila and the Prakat Lila are the same Lilas. No? The non-difference between them is emphasized. So what is the harm, someone may say, in going directly to the Aprakat Lila if there is no difference to the Prakat Lila? Of course, there is no difference in a substantial way, but there are certain differences, as we can see here. So Vishwanath makes that point by saying that this Aprakat Golok Vrindavan is called Siddha Bhumi, or a place with only Siddhas can enter there. And here Siddha means someone who has fully developed their Sthayi Bhav, not even someone who has only attained Prem, only, quote unquote. Someone who has further refined and developed their particular type of Prem to the utmost, the ultimate degree. That's the term Siddha in this connection. There's no place for sadhana in the Aprakat Vrindavan, no place for refinement and developing something that has not fully blossomed yet. And of course, in another way, we can say everything is constantly growing and blossoming eternally. But in this sense, certain developments need to be in place before entering the Aprakat. So one needs the Prakat Lila to further culture one's Prem. And the other section that we shared in our previous class, there Vishwanath was saying that it is not possible to attain the elevated moods of Sneha, Man, Pranaya, and so on through the performance of sadhana. Therefore, before directly associating with Sri Krishna Yogamaya, will take the devotee who has attained Prem to manifest Vrindavan that is perceivable in the material universe, and one will take birth there at the time of Krishna's appearance in this world, so that all these moods, Sneha and so on, further developments of Prem, can be perfected before those devotees attain Krishna direct, bodily, if you will, association. And before, because he says, practicing devotees, sadhakas, karmis, fruitive workers, and siddhas, perfected devotees, can all be seen to enter into the material manifest, Vrindavan, the Prakat Lila. It is also said to be both sadhana bhumi and siddha bhumi, land of sadhana or practice, and land of siddha or perfection. So here Vishwanath is establishing, again, the required developments of Prem cannot be obtained, he now takes another stance, by merely engaging in sadhana. Again, we need to be situated in a very specific, powerful, intense environment, surrounded by Nitya Siddhas from day one, receiving, as we say, Rasa Samskars from the womb of a Braja Gopika. Guru Maharaj will give the examples of playing in the college and being the best there, but then entering the professional league and everyone is the best there. So, but their association, gradually one becomes also, one's own perfection becomes even more perfected, more upgraded, if you will. So in this way, Vishwanath wants to say that stages, further developments of Prem like Sneha, Man, and so on, cannot be practiced outside of the Prakat Lila, basically. We need to enter there in order to culture them. And they need to be in place before entering the Aprakat Lila, for them to be fully operative in the ongoing dynamics there. And he concluded this section mentioning how the Prakat Lila is also known as Siddha Bhumi. In the previous section, he said the Aprakat Lila is known as Siddha Bhumi, land of perfected beings. Now, nobody else can enter there. But also, he now takes the stance that Prakat Lila, the earthly Vrindavan, is also Siddha Bhumi, because Siddhas are also there. Whenever the Lila is enacted on earth, these eternal associates come there. And because those Siddhas are there, that's called Siddha Bhumi. But also this earthly Vrindavan is known as Sadhana Bhumi, because sadhakas are seen there. Sadhakas, in this case, I even refer to premikas, who need to further refine their prem, sadhakas with lower stages, and even karmis, he's saying, material people, by any reason is there. We finished our last meeting also sharing some extra considerations regarding the differences between Prakat and Aprakat, the degrees of majesty and awareness there, how chronology plays itself out in the Prakat Lila, till the point of Nitya Sthiti, of unfolding to the point of resembling the dynamics of the eternal Vrindavan, and how one participating in the Prakat Lila is desiring to enter the Aprakat, the ones in the Aprakat desiring to enter the Prakat, even though the Nitya Parishas will be participating in the two of them, as we will further see today. So, some words regarding our previous meeting. Today we will finishing this 7th verse, prose, which is again, Vishnu will continue pounding this same topic, this post, concluding with it, and adding some further Purva Paksha in connection to the topics that he already has presented. So let's share the first part that we will study today. I'll share it in the chat for all of you. I will read it now. It says like this. All right. Then, now again, a further Purva-paksha is coming. All right. Acha. Then, where will those most eager bhaktas whose prem has awakened stay all this time before attaining a gopi form? The answer is, after the sadhaka body purges, that loving devotee who has eagerly desired direct devotional service for a long time will at once, by the Lord's grace, receive the gift of the desired service and the audience of the Lord and his eternal associates, even though he has not yet attained the manifestations of prem like sneha and so on, just as the Lord once bestowed his personal audience to Narad Muni in his previous birth. He will give the sadhaka a transcendental gopi body. That very gopi form, by the arrangement of Yogamaya, emerges from the womb of a gopi in the manifest Vrindavan, Prakat Vrindavan, where Krishna descends with his eternal associates. So here Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is presenting some further Purva-paksha argument, doubts, in connection to whatever he has presented till now, basically. So as we mentioned, he tries to make his case pretty comprehensive, pretty exhaustive, in a very clear way, trying to address all possible doubts and controversy that may be there. Even before that may appear in our mind, he himself presents them, he himself addresses them, and he himself solves them. So that's a the very way of establishing a point with integrity, if you will. So what's the main argument here? Well, what will happen to that premika who attain perfection and attain prem in this life and has to be born in the Prakat Lila, but Prakat Lila of Krishna was 5,000 years ago in this planet Earth. So if we have to wait till Krishna comes back again to this same planet Earth, how much that will take? So he's opening the door for presenting this point about how the Prakat Lila is always going on somewhere. By presenting this argument, he's opening the window for this opportunity. So in the Shastra, we know it says that Swayam Bhagavan, Sri Krishna, in his original form, he only descends directly in Bhoma Vrindavan once in a day of Brahma to perform there his Nara Lila on earth. So the point is, once in a day of Brahma. How long is the day of Brahma? It's pretty long. We cannot even pronounce the name. Too many zeros and millions and billions and zillions of years. Lots of time, specifically for us. Now, 14 Manvantars in each day and again. So Krishna, and I need to say Krishna's Prakat Lila specifically takes place once at the end of the Dwapara Yuga in the 28th Chatur Yuga of the 7th Manvantar. That's the day when he's doing that. So the point is, in the midst of such an abundance of time, the question presented here is that one: where and how will such devotee who has developed prem stay during such a long period of time? Where will he stay waiting for that? And how he will be able to tolerate such a waiting? After he gives up, the point is, after he gives up his body in the universe, he attained prem, he gave his body, she gave up her body. So he may have to wait innumerable ages before Krishna's Prakat Lila starts all over again on this planet Earth. So that's the implication here. The devotee also, if someone develops prem, there are two special implications that are connected to the intensity of prem, and regarding the devotee and regarding Krishna, and his reciprocation to that. If some devotee develops prem, that implies she have developed intense eagerness, but pretty intense eagerness. You can no longer survive without the object of your love. So it will be totally impossible, the implication is, for such a devotee to wait that long. It will be too much torture. And how Krishna will allow such a torture thing to happen, and how himself will be able to wait such a long time, because he reciprocates in accordance to the eagerness and intention. Yatamam prapadanti tam sadaiva bhajamyaham. He's controlled by prem and so on. So how can Krishna resist, if you will, before such an scenario? So those are the possible doubts presented here. So of course the answer that Vishwanath will give to this conundrum is that it's quite befitting the merciful nature of Bhagavan and the power of Prem present in the heart of the devotee, and of course in Bhagavan as well. So the conclusion will be that Bhagavan is so charmed, he will be so charmed, he will be so attracted to such a Premi Bhakta, that because such devotee has been hunkering for lifetimes for attaining an eternal position of service at the feet of Bhagavan in one way or another. He was hunkering for his association, leaving aside everything else, every consideration, every separate desire, and Krishna will reciprocate in kind. Let's remember when Gopakumar arrived to Braj, very briefly, Gopakumar, when he arrived to Vaikuntha, Narayan was happy to see him, but he didn't faint. But when Krishna arrived to Braj and Krishna saw him, Krishna loose, enter into pralaya. He got loss of consciousness there. And after that, he embraced Gopakumar, saying, I have been waiting for you so long. I've been joining you in all the experiences you were having, all your adventures as a sadhaka, and all of those doors that were closed in your face. When you were looking for me, I was there with you at every moment, and so on. And so the point is, naturally, Krishna will have to reciprocate to Prem in a particular way. So when such, Vishwanath makes this point here, with such a premika, the devotee who attained Prem leaves his body or her body, Krishna will immediately grant him his audience, his darshan. Not only himself, but along with his associates. Which associates? That will depend according to one's particular affinity, according to one's Prem, basically, the sthayi that one has at that point. The context, that will give the context. So Krishna will appear himself in a particular way, befitting to one's affinity, and the associates will be some particular type of associates that will be part of the eternal entourage in which one is projected one's eternal service. And also Vishwanath is mentioning here that Krishna will bestow at that moment, when this premik is leaving his body, a realization of his service, his eternal service, Lila Seva. And again, all the things already appeared in the heart of the devotee in the form of gradual, like sporadic spurtis, like revelations here and there in stages like bhava, before Prem. So what to speak Prem, what to speak devotee, leaving the world, entering, just about to enter the Prakat Lila. So Vishwanath yet did not fully answer the question, but he's already mentioning what to speak about the devotee waiting or being born somewhere else. Just when he's leaving his body, Krishna and his associates grant him her full darshan, realization of seva. Even if the devotee has not fully developed yet his prem, he gives him some trailer of eternality. So Krishna at that moment, it is said that even he will give the devotee a taste of his long desired devotional service, the possibility, the experience to go through that eternal service the devotee is projecting, the eternal prospect in Lila Seva. Even though that devotee has not yet attained manifestations of Prem, Noah, Sneha, and Man, but the idea here is it's just a matter of time. There is no coming back. For such a devotee, there's no chance of falling down or losing that possibility. He's just on his way, her way into that goal. It's just a matter of one more birth, if you will, the Prakat Lila. So Krishna will grant him like a trailer, like an appetizer, if you will, of what's coming. Further trailer to give support to the devotee, to give full hope. And as Krishna says in the Gita, Jam Jam Bhatish Maram Baram Tayanti Antik Kali Varam Tam Tam Bhaitikam Tiyashadat Bhava Bhavita. According to the bhav in which you live your body, that bhav you will attain. Bhav could mean state of existence, but also bhav could mean bhav, emotion, ecstasy. So Krishna here, you will see he's fully reciprocating with the corresponding bhav in the heart of the premika. And then after stating this very clearly, Vishwanath showing very clearly how immediately Sri Krishna will reciprocate with such a devotee with his whole entourage. Then Vishwanath substantiates his point with a famous example from Shastra. Again, this is the tradition. You make a point, you go to Shastra, you refer to Shastras. Mahaprabhu was Ramananda. Speak about Sadhya Sadhana Tattva, please substantiate your point, quoting Shabda Praman. So here Vishwanath is doing the same thing, quoting mainly verses from the Bhagavatam, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is based on the Bhagavatam and so on. So here another example from the Bhagavad, where Bhagavan is given single darshan to Narada Muni, famous section of the Bhagavatam. Narada Muni is attaining Prem in this body on earth, and Bhagavan is given one single darshan to Narada Muni. Of course, it is say Narada Muni is generally spoken of as a Nitya Siddha, but who also plays the role of a Sadhana Siddha in order to share some example for humanity. So in this sense, it seems he's attaining Prem in his previous lifetime, before becoming officially Narada Muni, when he was the son of the maid servant and so on. You know the story. So he was the son of the maid servant. The sadhus went to their house. Narada Muni heard their katha, ate their remnants, was instructed by them. Eventually, his mother died. He burned the house. He entered the forest, entered into samadhi, and Bhagavan gave darshan to Narada Muni, who was quite young yet, before again becoming Narada Muni officially. So this Bhagavan made it as a consolation, if you will, and as a confirmation in such an event. The idea of Narada Muni here plays the same role. In such an event, the devotee will very soon attain the kingdom of eternal service in the Nityadam. So Bhagavan revealed to Narada Muni once, say, I won't reveal now more, but I'm giving now this little taste of what's coming. So just you continue, there's no coming back. Very soon we will join eternally and so on. All the remaining pieces of the puzzle will put together and the whole picture of the Leela will become fully alive. So in this particular, again, example, Narada Muni is attaining only once the audience of Bhagavan, and he tried to see him again. Maybe you recall that section. So Narada Muni tried to reobtain that vision, because you can imagine what must it mean to see Bhagavan for the first time, and what does it mean to stop seeing him after having seen him. That's a big contrast, and that's how the waves of union and separation play. You have the union and you receive such a soothing, fulfilling experience, but suddenly the vision is over and you find yourself enthroned into an ocean of divine despair, only wanting to recover that vision. That's the only thing you are hankering for. After having such a vision, nothing else will satisfy your eyes, the eyes of your heart. So that's how Bhagavan is further turning the heart of the devotee in order to bestow further adhikar for Nitya Seva. So Narada Muni tried to bring back that original vision, but he was not able. Of course, we cannot force our way into darshan, if you will. So at that point, a voice came, an unembodied voice, which was Bhagavan himself consoling Narada Muni. And some unembodied words were there. Bhagavan saying to Narada, oh, you sinless one, I show you this form of mine once, just to increase your desire to see me. Already the desire was there, but again, further turning is always welcome. So when the desire to see me and to serve me has arisen, the devotee gradually gives up all desire for sense gratification, what we already say now. No? You have become fixed, Bhagavan said to Narada, in me simply by serving my devotees for a short while. That was his case with the Bhaktivedantas, as Prabhupada will mention them, the ones who visited Narada's home. Thus, Bhagavan concluded, you will swiftly give up this material world and attain my abode as one of my associates. So we see how soothing, how consoling, how supporting are these words of Bhagavan. He's explaining why only once I'm showing myself to you in order to further bless you, basically, in order so that your prem increases. That's the only blessing high devotee will desire. Whatever will further increase and turn my prem may that be welcome, whatever form it takes. That's the real blessing, the only thing that an advanced devotee will want. So Bhagavan is very clearly saying this here. I'm blessing you in this particular way, and very soon you will join me forever. So as we know, after leaving that body, Narada Muni became Narada Muni, with the Bina flying across the sky and so on. So after quoting this scriptural example, Vishwanath will conclude this first section stating how Sri Krishna, similarly to the example of Narada, again going back to our main example, which is a premika who lives this world, Krishna, after giving his darshan, along with his retinue, his associates, in the particular flavor that the devotee will have an affinity for, to this premika who is leaving his body, her body, immediately, that's the main point Vishwanath wants to make, immediately Bhagavan will give the devotee the desired gopi deha. Of course, again, remember, he's speaking in terms of gopi body because his main focus is Kamanuga Bhakti along the book. That has been the main context, as usual. So, but of course, we can speak about Gopa Deha, Gopi Deha, whatever the case. So he will give this desired Gopi Deha, in the words of Vishwanath, to the same devotee who is worshipping him in such specific mood, of course. Here we are speaking about someone who is worshipping Bhagavan in Gopi Bhava, not in Gopa Bhava. Now, how that will take place, he mentions, Yogamaya will make the body of the devotee appear from the womb of the Gopi, as a Gopi in this particular case, at the time when Sri Krishna and his parishats, his associates, appear in earthly Vrindavan for exhibiting their Prakat Lila. Also, sometimes this receives the name of Swarup Siddhi. And then entrance into Golok is called Vastu Siddhi. Sometimes this is a different types of perfection mentioned. Siddhi is perfection. Swarup means perfections of one's own nature or identity, it could say, which implies entering into the Prakat Lila in the womb of a Gopi. That's a type of perfection. But after that birth in the Prakat Lila, Swarup Siddhi, the entrance into the Aprakat Lila, into Golok Vrindavan, is called Vastu Siddhi. Vastu sometimes means like concrete perfection, or if you want, like the ultimate further development. So, in this connection, we could also mention, of course, that if a sadhaka has to further turn her bhav by witnessing, again, with sadhaka here I refer even to someone who may have attained prem, but not the further developments of prem. That's how the term has been used by Vishwanath here. So if a sadhaka has to further turn her bhav by witnessing Prakat Lila, again, that's an important point. Prakat Lila is mainly predominated by separation, remember this point. Aprakat Lila is predominated by union. And Aprakat Lila, and the Prakat Lila on earth mainly predominated by separation, which is the entry point for those sadhakas who enter the Prakat Lila. And so such a sadhaka, for example, in the context of Kamanuga Bhakti, we are speaking in Kamanuga Bhakti. So if a sadhaka is not yet in the Prakat Lila, Vrindavan, earthly Vrindavan, is practicing attained prem, Kamanuga Bhakti, before entering the Prakat Lila, he can only or she can only experience Purvarag. We have 4 types of separation in Kamanuga Bhakti, in Madhurya Bhava. In Purvarag, Mam, Pravas, and Prem Vaitchitya. But only Purvarag is the one you can experience before officially meeting Krishna, which means developing some anticipation by hearing about your beloved, but by never meeting him officially in a personal way, acknowledging your feelings and so on. So Purvarag is the only type of separation we can go through as sadhakas, even in our present stage. We should start culturing separation on some level or another. By Shravan, Kirtan, in proper association, some desire will be there to get closer to such an ideal. But the other types of vipralamba, which are again man, which is the separation that comes after some quarrel. Well, for example, Sri Radha enters in sulky mood with Sri Krishna. That creates some separation. If Krishna went to Chandravali and left Radha waiting in the kunja all night long, and she just appeared the next morning with all the marks of the loving battle with Chandravali, Sri Radha will be quite angry at that moment and will kick Krishna out from the kunja. So that will create some separation called man. For example, pravas means separation due to distance, physical distance, time, place, circumstance, when Krishna is out of whatever, Mathura or Dwarka, or during the day, even when he's not meeting with the gopis. And prem by chitya is a unique type of separation, which is separation in union. Like, for example, when Radha was once with a bumblebee, and not the Brahma Gita, but the bumblebee was there. She was with Krishna, and bumblebee appeared in front of the two, between the two. And Madhumanga was close there at the time, and he chased the bumblebee out. So she said, okay, now Madhusudan is gone. So Madhusudan means bumblebee, but also it's a name of Krishna. So for Radha, Madhusudan meant Krishna. So she heard Krishna is gone, even though Krishna was there right in front of her. And she was thrown into an ocean of separation. And Krishna was amazed by seeing the degree of her love. So the point is, these three later type of separation will come after you meet Krishna personally. And of course, for someone in Kamanuga Bhakti, and more specifically in our school in Manjari Bhav, these types of separation will take a particular form, because in Manjari won't be angry with Krishna because of a personal romantic relationship or like this, but will go through Sri Radha's experience by vicarious, attaching herself to the Radha Bhav. So that's how it works for Manjari. Of course, in Kamanuga Bhakti is the second option, that is not Manjari Bhav, but is Sambhogecha Mai Kamanuga Bhakti, direct union. That's another thing, but that's not a main strand in our tradition. So, well, we have spoken quite considerably about Kamanuga Bhakti, Vishwanath, we ourselves as well in this context. So, since he has concentrated mainly to describe in detail this experience of what happens while living in this world, how these different types of separation have been experienced by someone in connection with Kamanuga Bhakti, I would like to share you, trying to also share the other perspective, if you will, the other picture in our Sampradaya, how all this is happening in the context of Sakya Prema, which is again a second main current in our Sampradaya. And for this, and I hope you will, I'm sure you will be very happy to hear what I'm going to say now, I will share with you an advance of Sakya Mandal, a circle of friends. Guru Maharaj shared with me and gave me permission to share with you in class. Of course, I asked him for blessings and permission. So I will share a summary, not all the text that he sent me, but one part of it, where he's speaking about this, what happens to the sakas, especially Pranarma sakas, but Sakya in general, in the context of separation, how they go through that. So I hope that helps. I will make a full reading. It will be some minutes, but please put your attention there, because it's a very beautiful, poetic, and heart-touching section, especially for the ones with Sakya affinity. So it says like this: Sakya Mandala Ki Jai. Like the moon, which controls the ocean's tide, Sri Krishna Chandra wakes and wanes in the life of his devotees, appearing and disappearing, causing feelings of both union, yoga rasa, in his presence, and separation, ayoga rasa, in his absence. Separation from Krishna, ayoga, appears in the life of Krishna's friends in two forms. Before they meet Krishna for the first time, in the context of his lila, as it manifests on earth and plays itself out, his friends experience a sense of separation from him, arising from things they have heard about him. This first form of separation, termed utkanta, expresses itself as intense longing to meet Krishna for the first time. No? This is similar to the purvara we have described in connection to Kamanuga Bhakti. Then, after having met him and having entered into a relationship with him, when he then departs, his friends experience the second kind of separation termed viyoga. No? So of course, after having met him implies they enter into the Prakat Lila and eventually meet Krishna on earth. but eventually there is separation, as we will see. So there we enter the second kind of separation called Viyoga. This Viyoga, in its most intense form, expresses itself through 10 conditions collectively termed dasa. So here Guru Maharaj mentions the 10. First, intense heat, tapa. Second, krishata, or emaciation. Third, jagarya, or insomnia. Fourth, alambana sunyata, or helplessness. 5, adriti, or irresolution. 6th, jadata, or inertness. 7th, vyadhi, or apparent disease. 8th, unmada, madness. 9th, murchita, unconsciousness. And 10th, mriti, apparent death. So he continues saying, corresponding with the separation of utkanta and viyoga are 3 types of union: siddhi, tushti, and sthiti. The union of meeting Krishna for the first time after utkanta is termed siddhi, or perfection. Remember, utkanta is the one that you never met Krishna for the first time, but you heard about him and you have some anxiety in meeting him. So whenever the union comes after that, this is called siddhi, or perfection. Then the union that occurs after incidental periods of viyoga, separation, such as the separation from Krishna experienced by his friends at night during their sleep, this is termed tushti, or satisfaction. Tushti will mean union after officially having met Krishna for the first time, but in between brief periods of separation, one night till the next day and so on. And then the union that corresponds with the full phase of separation that occurs when Krishna remains in Mathura and in which the 10 conditions mentioned above manifest is termed sthiti, or sustained union, like permanent. So this, and again, all this is happening in the Prakat Lila, for example, no? The last one, no? Krishna going to Mathura, that's not happening in the Aprakat. So in the Aprakat Lila, Krishna goes to Mathura always, every time the Prakat Lila is being enacted, again, not only in connection to his Nitya associate, but as a part of the necessary refinement of Prem for these devotees in particular. No? They need to go through all these different stages of separation in order to taste all the different stages of union, which will make their Prem fully developed. So let's continue. It says, although his Prakat and Aprakat Leelas are constituted of the same bhavas, in the Prakat Leela, intense separation is predominant. And it is this Leela through which sadhakas can enter his eternal drama, or bhakti rasa. So here Guru Maharaj is making the very same points we are making here in the Raga-vartma-candrika. In this connection, we should remember how Krishna relied upon his friends to assist him in pacifying his parents and lovers, sending letters with them and giving them instructions on how to console his mother, his servants, his cows, and his lovers. When Krishna was, you remember, on earth, outside of Braj, in Mathura, his friends were with him there, and he's sending back the Gopas to give support to the rest of the Braj. In this Leela, Guru Maharaj says, we see how his friends rose to the occasion in a manner characteristic of fraternal love. However, while embracing the task temporarily mitigated their own feelings of impending separation, upon completing it, they themselves fell prey to all 10 psychophysiological conditions of transcendental love and separation, corresponding with the full measure of Viyoga. After returning to their village from metropolitan Mathura, the Sakas Viraha Bhav, or mode of separation, peaked, and they sometimes experience conditions such as the 10 ones mentioned before. This extremely body heat, for example, the first one, tapa. Following the lead of Subal, the Sakas took shelter in this connection, experiencing tapa, extremely bodily heat. Now Guru Maharaj will give examples of each one of the 10. So first of all, tapa, extremely bodily heat. Following the lead of Subal, the Sakas took shelter of the shade of the great banyan tree or the cooling waters of the Jamuna. However, in either case, their viraha jwala, or the fever of separation, only increased in intensity, warming the shade and the water even in the winter months. At times, the Sakas of Braj became slight and fragile, experiencing emaciation, the second one, Krishata. At such times, the spiritual earth, fire, water, and ether elements of their aprakrit bodies diminished, while their bodily air intensified in the form of deep breaths. Emaciated like yogis in trance, they lived practically on air alone. Next, sometimes his sakas were unable to keep their composure in bouts with insomnia, jagari. At such times, they could not tell the difference between day or night, and sometimes they experienced mental instability. Alambana Sunjata, the other one, crying, saying, "Where should I stay? Where should I go? I can't see any way to attain Krishna's company." Such were the cries of Sridham, Sudam, Dham, Subal, Ujjval, Lavanga, Arjuna, and Saka Mahabal. Rising and falling again and again, they ran here and there in confusion. Next symptom. From the sorrow of separation, at times irresolution arose, adriti, at which time Krishna's sakas lost interest even in herding cows, their source of livelihood. They found no impetus to sing, dance, or play musical instruments. They derived no pleasure from any activity. Indeed, the very idea of remaining alive held no promise for them. They stopped adorning their limbs with ornaments, stopped weaving and wearing flower garlands, and even stopped tying their hair in top knots. Next one. Afflicted by inertness, Jadata, Krishna's sakas lacked luster like trees without leaves, and they were silent like trees in which no birds sat to sing. Like trees with no fruit, they were unproductive, and like trees, they too became unmoving. They lost any sense of identification with their bodies, and as a result, their limbs and torsos diminished in stature. Indeed, at such times, they appeared to be made of dull matter. Their limbs did not twitch, and their only movement was the tears that trickled from their eyes. Next symptom. Sometimes they appeared overcome by disease, vyadhi, caused by their psychology in separation rather than infirmity caused by biological conditions. Next one. And other times, they appeared to be insane, unmada, laughing loudly like madmen, bubbling and delirious. Mistaking a tamal tree to be Krishna, they will embrace it. Then, after understanding that they had not attained Krishna, they will fall unconscious to the ground, shouting, "Bhai, Bhai," like brother or friend. They suddenly dashed off running in any direction and then rolled in the dust, covering themselves with it. At other times, they appeared unconscious, murchita, fainting for some time. Their limbs did not move, their eyes did not blink, and foam oozed from their mouths as their throats gurgled. Fainting and falling unconscious, they lay here and there up on the ground. And in the height of their separation, Krishna's sakas experienced a death-like state, mriti, symptoms of which include incoherence, changing of bodily color, diminished breathing, and so on. But how does Krishna feel for them? And how does he seek to mitigate that separation other than through his spurtis? We glimpse these in his instructions to Uddhava. Remembering the Brahma Vimohan Lila, Krishna implores Uddhava, saying, "My dear companions, Sridham and others, brought me great joy when they competed with one another, trying to touch me, each shouting, 'I will touch him first,' as I wandered off to look at the flowered beauty of the distant part of the forest. In my name, O expert one, affectionately embraced each one of them again and again." As undesirable as such love in separation seems, Virahabhav is a deep and sublime aspect of the ecstasy of Lila Seva that has its own reward and also culminates in the most complete form of union, sthiti, that characterizes the aprakat Lila. Jai. Srila Guru Maharaj ki Jai, Sri Sakyamangal ki Jai. So, I hope you have enjoyed this trailer of Guru Maharaj's upcoming book, and very much in line with what we are speaking here, and how the whole section finishes, mentioning this last type of union who has to do actually with the separation that the devotee will go, whether it be a gopi, when Krishna in Prakat Lila goes out of Vrindavan to Mathura, to Dwarka, and the corresponding separation that will be experienced there, that will have a corresponding union eventually, that will be of the form, if you will, that will be of the type of union that will be ongoing in the Aprakat Lila. In the case of Sakya Prem, that we'll call Sthiti. So this is one of the main purposes also of this Viraha Lila, or separation Lilas, when Krishna is going out of Vrindavan. Of course, going out, quote unquote, we know Krishna never puts a step off Vrindavan, but in some form, some manifestation, he goes out, he remains and manifests his original form in Braj. So one of the reasons for this, apart of churning the ongoing eternal ecstasy of his Nitya Parishats, it's for these premikas, for these devotees who attain prem in this life, who were born in the Prakat Lila on earth, so they can finish their turning of their bhavs by witnessing themselves all the different stages and degrees of separation that these Nitya Parishats, eternal associates, are going through in connection to Krishna, and thus they themselves becoming acquainted with the, let's say, the reminding of their bhavas, the ultimate prospect of their own prem, in their own bhavas, becoming acquainted with that. So interestingly, this happens in the Prakat Lila after the Prakat Lila reaches this point called Nitya Sthiti. I think I've told you this. No? The Prakat Lila is characterized by the chronological unfolding, where Krishna is being born, having Kumar Lila, Pokanda Lila, Kishore Lila, different things start to be in place, as Guru Maharaj will say. After the famous Jugal Gita that we have in the 10th canto of Bhagavad, chapter 35, the gopis are hankering to meet Krishna not only at night, already they are doing so, Rasa Lila every night, but they want to meet him in the day. So after Jugal Gita, they express their desire there. Krishna kills Haristasura. After that, Radha Kunda becomes manifest, Shama Kunda becomes manifest, gopis and Krishna meeting every midday. And at that point of the unfolding of the Lila, the Prakat Lila reaches what we call Nitya Sthiti, which means a permanent situation, or it resembles as much as possible the Aprakat Lila. The level of unfolding reached the point in which it resembles the dynamics of the Aprakat Lila. So when the Prakat Lila on earth reaches that point, it's when Krishna, after the unfolding of the whole Lila, goes out of Vrindavan, goes to Mathura, goes to Dwarka to perform some other purposes and functions there. All of them, again, still nurturing the experience of the Brajavasas, of course, mainly. So, this is the general principle as we see, not only for those with affinity for Kamanuga Bhakti, but also for those with affinity for Sakyarasa, being born in the Prakat Lila as an entry point through which one imbibes the rasa samskars, as we say, from the Nitya Siddhas. Of course, sometimes there are some exceptions to the rule that we find also in scripture. Someone may present the case of Gopa Kumar, for example, who is a famous example of Sakyarati, Priyanarma Sakyarasa. But he's an exception to the rule, because we see he was born in Vrindavan on earth, but it was not during the Prakat Lila. He was born as a Brajavasi, but Krishna was not performing his Nar Lila here. And he attained the uppercut without being born in the Prakat Lila where Krishna was performing his Lila there. But again, this will be mainly considered as an exception to the norm more than the rule itself. Also, sometimes we could, since we are speaking about different affinities, Vatsalya Bhav also, for example, sometimes it say that the Brahma Vimohan Lila represents a whole window of opportunity for those who have certain affinity in the context of Vatsalya Bhav, which is again not mainly some opportunity in our Sampradaya, but for whoever may have that affinity, and in order for them to attain perfection in their experience of Vatsalya Bhav. But Brahma Vimohan Lila is a great chance. Why? Because as you know, the calves and the cohort boys are being kidnapped by Brahma, and Krishna expands himself as such. So Krishna becomes the son of all the mothers and of all the fathers of Braj. So that's pretty much very, very becoming for Vatsalya Bhakta. Jiva Goswami quotes a verse in his commentary to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu in the section where Sambandha Nuga Bhakti is described, Vatsalya Bhakti being one of the types of Sambandha Nuga. And he quotes the Puranas. And in this verse of the Puranas, it is spoken, someone attained perfection in Vatsalya Bhav, and Jiva Goswami mentions in the Brahma Vimohan Lila. That was his entry point, if you will, his window of opportunity. So, in this way, for us to engage in bhakti, the conclusion that Vishwanath is further imposing here is we first need to receive the required bhakti samskars, whether in this lifetime or in previous ones as well. And that will descend into our lives through sadhu sangha, and originally from the hearts of the eternal associates of Bhagavan, the Ragatmikas, whose very constitution is made of what Vishwanath calls anadi siddha bhakti samskar, perfected impressions, devotional impressions that have no beginning. So our hearts should develop some desire for this. Hearts that have no desire for rasa, hearts that are not sanctified by samskars in this direction cannot relish rasa ultimately. Also, Rupa Goswami interestingly mentions in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that for bhakti to take the form of bhakti rasa will be the ultimate turning point, if you will, of bhakti. That must come from previous lifetimes. So my point here is that this may be some other indirect proof, if you will, of the necessity of being born in the Prakat Lila. We could take this. The Rupa Goswami said, if you want to go through bhakti rasa, first you have to have previous lifetimes of practice. And one of those lifetimes may be getting born in the Prakat Lila. So before finishing today's meeting, we have a brief last section of this 7th verse, which is mainly like a closing to the whole idea, and very nice words. So give me some more minutes. And here Vishwanath will conclude this section by giving further clarification about why there will be no delay in the premikas attaining the birth in the Prakat Lila. Because again, still the idea will, he still, well, let's read the verse basically now. But his main point will be, he will emphasize how much hope we should have as sadhakas in our search for this specific goal of Raga Bhakti. He's trying to create that teachable and hopeful moment, full of hope for those who are really threading on the path of Raga Bhakti. So I'll share with you this very last section of this 7th verse. And I will read, of course. It says like this. This is the very last part. It says, there will not be the slightest delay in this, because the manifest pastime Prakat Lila continue to take place without any interruption in one or another of the innumerable universes. Thus, the devotees endowed with prem take birth from the womb of the gopi in that universe in which the Vrindavan pastimes are being enacted. When a sadhaka who has attained the full maturity of his practices leaves his body, and experiences the manifestation of Prem, Krishna always appears before that devotee and accompanied by his associates. Therefore, O greatly eager Anuragi devotees, do not fear, rest assured that all is auspicious for you. So again, there was this remaining question. Remember the last section that someone may have asked, but the devotee will have to be waiting for eons before the next descent of Krishna in this planet Earth will take place. So Vishwanath say, no, Krishna will give darshan at the end of his life, and Krishna will give a birth in a gopi body, but still he didn't make it fully clear, his answer. But how it will happen, the Prakat Lila takes lots of time. So now he's answering this by implying this Prakat Lila on earth is taking place always in some planet Earth, in some of the innumerable universes. So with this, Vishwanath will further pound his present post, if you will, repeating some things he already mentioned with the intention of emphasizing how for such an eager devotee, again, especially to the Anuragi, devotee premika, filled with eagerness, all-consuming eagerness, for such devotee, there won't be even the slightest delay in this delivery. Again, not only because of Krishna's own nature and desire to reciprocate accordingly, because Krishna says this in the Gita, paritranaya sadanam, vinasya chaduskritam dharma samstapanarthayasam bhavami juge juge. I come age after age to protect my devotees, and so on. Many other functions as well. Chastise the impious and establish the principles of dharma and so on. But mainly he says paritranaya sadhanam. I come to protect my devotees. And commentators mention that this takes different forms. But which is the main type of protection that he will bestow is to protect those eager devotees who are about to die in separation from Krishna. So he will protect them by being born on earth, making them be born on earth in the Prakat Lila, giving them their darshan and so on. So in one sense, there will be not the slightest delay in this because of Krishna's own nature and desire to reciprocate, but also the point that the extra point that was remaining to be presented. The Prakat Lila is constantly revolving within the innumerable material universes. Like sometimes example is like a 5-brand circle without interruption, basically. In some planet Earth, in some universe, Prakat Lila is going on. And we could say why this is so in this connection. We could say, well, in part, at least because Krishna doesn't want to delay in giving this opportunity to whoever is ready to enter into such Prakat Lila. You follow? In order for those eager devotees to immediately access Krishna in the Prakat Lila, access that chance of further turning the Prem, as they are eager, Krishna is eager, so he will always have some window open, if you will, some Prakat Lila waiting for them at some planet Earth, so they can immediately go there. Actually, it is said that each and every manifest pastime that Krishna exhibits in the Prakat Lila is eternal. Even though some of the pastimes he exhibits on earth, sometimes they are called naimittika, which means like occasional, because they are not manifested in the aprakat. For example, Krishna killing, Putana, or the demons generally, that's mainly connected to the Leelas on earth. In that sense, they are temporary or occasional, but at the same time, they are always going on in some place, in some planet Earth. So in that sense, they are nitya. They are continual, permanent, eternal, if you will. Because that's the point. For example, as soon as the pastime of Krishna's advent, or again, Krishna's killing of Putana, as soon as that's completed, such Leela will start again immediately in some other material universe. So all of these Leelas are being enacted on some material universe at every moment. So each and every pastime in this sense is considered eternal. Guru Maharaj will say, it's always 12 p.m. somewhere. So in the same way, all of these Leelas are taking place somewhere. So there's always this window of opportunity open for the premika who is ready to be born as a gopi or as a gopa in the Prakat Lila, in Braj, in Bhoma Vrindavan, there's always a chance for them to do so without any delay. So Krishna made this whole arrangement because of the eagerness of those devotees and because of the eagerness that he has in connection to them. And so that's an important point to establish. And of course, in this connection, besides what Vishwanath mentioned here, of course, in our tradition, we have this like dual, if you will, possibility of entering into the Golok Vrindavan, and inside the lotus inside the lotus, as Guru Maharaj will say, Nitya Navadip, attaining a second parallel identity in the context of Gaur Lila. But also, we have this idea that is not too much explored in our Sampradaya of the possibility of being born in the Bhoma Lila of Navadvip. Because again, in the same way that we can say this idea, somewhere there's always the Krishna Lila on earth being taking place. The same thing we can say regarding the earthly Lila of Mahaprabhu, Nadia. So sometimes devotees may have asked, so parallel to when you will be born in the Prakat Lila in Vrindavan, may that happen also with Navadvip? Again, it's not a too much explored idea. Our previous acharya have not written about that, basically, almost. And also, of course, we have not many reasons to say that cannot happen. Who are we to deny such a possibility? But also, I will say that Navadvip, Guru Maharaj will term that as Sadhana Siddha Bhumi, which is like the land of perfected sadhakas. So I will say that that's a challenge that we have here now, to become perfected sadhakas. And when we attain that perfection as sadhakas here, we will find ourselves in Bhoma Navadvip, if you will, because in one sense, we are now taking part of the Yuga Dharma delivered by Mahaprabhu in this Kali Yuga. So we are part of his Sankirtan Lila. We are participating in the extension of what he established 500 years ago. But again, it is also mentioned in the same way like the Bhoma Lila of Krishna is eternal. It's always happening somewhere. Same thing we can say regarding Gaur Lila. And from there we have some slight possibility, not slight, some possibilities there, but again, not to explore, but at least I want to mention the idea and the possibility, and I think that will depend on the level of your eagerness and desire as well. So in this way, just to finish, here Vishwanath is concluding this 7th verse saying that as soon as the sadhaka in this way leaves his body, her body, then Yogamaya will grant him her birth from the gopi's womb, be that you, in case you project yourself as a gopi or as a gopa, you have to be born in a gopi's womb, in a universe where Sri Krishna is manifesting himself with his associates in Braj, and this earthly Braj, which is of course an important point, is considered as a manifestation of Krishna's Sandhini Shakti, his existential potency, and is all pervading, just like Krishna, even though it may seem human, ordinary, limited. Actually, its real size, depth, weight is the law present there. So in this particular context, this Dham, where Krishna is taking birth, and his associate, and we eventually, is one and simultaneously present in the spiritual world and in the material universes, as we already mentioned. Chaitanya Charitamrita makes this point in the very beginning, in the 5th chapter of the Adi Lila. Krishna Das Kaviraj is saying that Sri Gokul, the highest of all, is also called Braj, Golok, Shvetadvip, and Vrindavan. Unlike the transcendental body of Sri Krishna, Gokul is all-pervading, infinite and supreme. It expands both above and below, without any restriction, and that abode is manifested within the material world by the will of Sri Krishna, and it is identical to that original Gokul, the one in the uppercut. They are not two different bodies. So, as we already mentioned, yes, there is always Krishna Lila going on earth, in some planet Earth, and also simultaneously in the uppercut Lila, in Goloka. Goloka does not become empty because everyone went for the ride on planet Earth for the uninterrupted Prakat Lila. Now, they are both in the uppercut Lila and also participating in the Prakat Lila simultaneously. So in this way, since this eternal Dham is non-different, when it is situated in another universe, in one universe, another, that's why Vishwanath finishes this verse here saying that there is no need for the anuragi or eager devotee and anxious premikas to worry about when will I attain, how will I attain, will I attain my desire. Vishwanath says, don't worry, because due to Krishna's also eager or anxious wish, they will quickly attain him in Nitya Seva, those devotees. Both Krishna and the devotees will attain each other very quickly. The two of them are burning in separation for each other. So that's why Vishwanath concludes saying, you are situated in an all-species situation. So that's why he says, therefore, all greatly eager anuragi devotees, do not fear, rest assured that all is auspicious for you. Similar to how Krishna begins and also ends his Bhagavad Gita by invoking this famous term, Masachaha, which means basically don't fear or don't worry. You say this, you have this English saying, right? Don't worry, be happy. So Krishna begins the whole Bhagavad Gita saying, don't worry. He ends the Bhagavad Gita saying, Masacha, Sarvadharmam Parityaja, Mokshai Masacha, Kamteya Pranati Anihi, Ame Bhaktya Pranashati. Krishna says to Arjuna, declare boldly, my devotee never perishes. So only over and over again. Of course, here we are saying that in the context of premikas. No, you won't fall, don't worry, rest assured, everything is auspicious. But also for us as sadhakas who are in our way in that direction, it's also applicable. So what to speak, of course, of premikas here, of the ones who are just about to enter the Nitya Lila. So for us sadhakas, also there is a very, very bright horizon waiting for us. Once Srila Srinivas said this is one of my favorite quotes of him. And it's a very simple one, but very layered with meaning and sweetness. He said, your future is brilliant. Basically, he said that. So you can think, someone like him, what must he be seeing in me? No, he's only looking at my potential. He's only looking at the how noble and powerful is the grace of Mahaprabhu extending, reaching me through parampara, how many miracles that can create in us. So how bright is our future, our prospect, our horizon is totally brilliant. So in this way we are being considered and judged according not to who we are now, not to who we were in the past, but about regarding who we can be in our future, our ideal. So according to how we are being seen by those eyes of love, we should become a means for our ideal, and we should be generous enough also to see each other in terms of our prospects. Only considering that, having deep faith and understanding the power of Mahaprabhu's mercies, I always say, is much more powerful than all our anarthas put together. So even though we are still going the ups and downs of Nishtitava and Kriya and so on, problems maybe there or whatever, still great hope must be there, because at the end of the day, mercy will overpower our lack of whatever may be lacking there. So here I'm closing the 7th verse. So in one sense, the book is finishing here, if you will, but there is still one more verse, which will be more kind of concluding verse, invoking certain blessings and so on. So of course, we will see that verse in our next class, which will be the final class of this series. So thank you very much for your time. And of course, we have some minutes if any of you may have any questions, something you may like to share.
I have a question, Maharaj.
Yes, Maharaj.
Well, I was wondering because we're all going to attain, in one universe we're going to get there. So what about, I guess this happens in the apricot Leela, but I was hoping, and I've always heard that we get to be with all our guides and our teachers and our gurus and our friends in the same group. So will that still happen? Because I know I'll be like way behind everyone. So I just was wondering, will I still be able to be with all my friends? because they'll be in a different universe in the beginning.
Well, of course, we have to be careful of not conceiving this in a three-dimensional way, you know, because it's a realm of emotion. So according to the degree of our emotion and attachment, that will happen. No? I remember I once spoke with Guru Maharaj in that connection, and I asked him, for example, if you are my guru in this lifetime, and of course, or whoever, no, if I have my guru one guru in this lifetime, and in this lifetime my guru attains perfection, if she was not already perfect, attains perfection and enters the Nitya Lila, but I didn't, I will be born again on earth, and I will require another guru, but my previous guru won't be there because she is already in the Nitya Lila. So I will have another guru. Maybe that other guru not necessarily will be a disciple of my guru in my previous lifetime, if you will. So the question will be, well, and when I attain perfection, will I join the party, if you will, of my latest guru or my former guru in the previous lifetime? And of course, this is not something we have to calculate and to measure. It will be according to the measure of our attachment and love. So if we develop very extraordinary feeling and attachment, and we really want to be with a particular guru, let's say in this in eternity, but we still have to go through some lifetimes, that's not an impediment. That will happen somehow or other. We cannot calculate, but also it doesn't mean that necessarily we will be with everyone that we have met in this lifetime. It will be according to degrees of affinity and connection. I mean, if you want that, that will happen. But yeah, basically that's connected, of course, how that will play out. One thing is Gaur Lila, Nitya Navadvip, Guru Maharaj. Sometimes we will say, you know, the ashram of the guru on this world is like a reflection of the eternal ashram that the guru will have in the eternal world, and the disciples will live there with the guru. But again, we cannot fully like think of it in material terms, because you can say, okay, my guru has his ashram here in this world, and in Nitya Navadvip, that ashram will be there, and we will be there with all our God brothers and God siblings, and Gurudev will be there as a guru. But also, if you apply that same idea to our guru as a disciple of his guru, so he should be living in his guru's ashram in Nitya Navadvip as a disciple. So you may start to calculate, well, how will that happen? There's no possibility, but again, we are starting to maybe think too much about something that will be accommodated by the will of providence and Yogamaya and so on. But what I wanted to mention is that, of course, this takes a form in Nitya Navadvip, in the dynamics of Gaur Lila, more connected with Dasya, and Dasya with a tinge of Sakya, related to Mahaprabhu and related to our Guru as well. But in the Krishna Lila, as you know, it's another bhava, so that will take another form. And that will depend also according to your affinity, because if you're, of course, the more general idea is your guru may have, I don't know, affinity for a particular bhava, and the disciples will have that same affinity and will follow in that same bhava and serve Sri Krishna, Sri Radha Krishna through the agency of their guru. But sometimes the guru may have one bhava and their disciples may have another bhava. It's maybe exception to the rule, but that may happen. But still, there is a possibility of the two of them in the Krishna Lila, somehow or other serving, not together fully, because if one is a Priyanarmasaka and the other is a Manjari, they're not every day together like Manjaris with Manjaris, Priyanarmasaka with Priyanarmasakas. But since these are compatible rasas, they will have some particular affinity in the context of their seva, bringing Radha and Krishna together and sending messages and making arrangements. So, but again, we cannot fully think ourselves in there, no? So, but we should, I mean, surrender and trust that Krishna will make a much better arrangement than whatever we may have in mind. So, some thoughts about your question. I hope that helps. And I don't know if there is any other.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other question?
I have a question.
Yes, Krishna Chaitanya.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts about this, or have run into what acharyas may or may not say about it, and it may just be the nature of Sanskrit language, me not really being that up on it. But what I'm talking about here is terms such as bhava, utkanta, rag, and other ones where there's multiple uses, or because bhava is used sometimes as a stage of bhakti, or I think you know what I'm talking about. Is there any reason given, or is this just the nature of Sanskrit language? I I mean, I think it's great. I like it, but you,
Yeah, I like it
what are
too.
your thoughts?
Well, I think that the full answer to your question will come when we become fully uh, accomplished Sanskrit pandits, if you will. When you really enter into, I mean, I think it's nice to at least have a glimpse of that in order to appreciate, because it's, of course, it's still a language, and it's in one sense part of this world, even though it's called Devanagari and revealed by the gods, but still it may have some, you call it, limitations. Not that by knowing Sanskrit you have Bhakti Adhikar necessarily, but by learning these languages in connection to revelation and so on, you realize, oh, this is such a flexible, elastic language that allows for so many possibilities. But of course, it's not that, sorry, it's not that any word will mean anything in any moment and you can make any meaning according to your own whimsical wish, but actually it makes you to pay further close attention to the specific context and to develop sensibility of all the details of the specific section, environment, what's been said before and after. So it makes you to pay a close attention, basically, to become absorbed in why this particular word is being used here, what's the meaning in this particular case, because in other cases, as you said, it may mean exactly the opposite. For example, the word bhava, as you mentioned, it can refer to the Mahabhava of Srimati Radharani, to Bhava as a further development of Prem, to the Bhava as a previous stage of Prem, or to Bhava as material existence. Mahaprabhu says, Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. Their Bhava means samsara. So the same word can speak of samsara, or to the other extreme can speak of Sri Radha Mahava. So it's interesting because it lends itself also for how to say, sometimes we want to speak about something very confidential, so the ones who have ears for that will catch the subtle meaning, but the one who don't have that ear won't be able to enter there and to create, let's say, chaos there, and will just remain with the lower understanding according to the adhikar as well. So in this way, one same word will speak to different people according to the different degrees of eligibility, so that everyone may find some level of meaning according. That will be another way of saying that as well. But again, for me, that will take to really enter into the language and learning that. And of course, there's so many degrees of that. But yeah, it's a very beautiful language. And I will say there's a lot of indirect meanings there, especially for us as bhaktas, and especially in our particular tradition that will make so much emphasis into the romantic affairs of Sri Radha and Krishna, and to the language of love, which is poetry, and how in the context of Bhakti Rasa and the context of the loving affairs of Radha and Krishna, there's so much of Parokshabad, Vyanjana Priti, which means implications, implied meanings, indirect things, something meaning something on the coverts. I don't know, when Madhu Mangal speaks to Krishna about Sri Radha in front of Jatila, but it means something totally different for Jatila, but it means something totally different for Sri Radha's ears. So everyone receives a particular mention, everyone is fully satisfied according to the degree of adhikar. So Sanskrit, not only Sanskrit, of course, but Sanskrit is especially like befitting to those dynamics. No? So I will say, I will mainly focus in that direction regarding all the different meanings of these different words. Okay, any other question before finishing? Okay, so I think there are no more questions today, so we'll stop here. Thank you very much for your time, presence, and see you next Thursday. We will be meeting each other for our last talk of this Sri Raga-vartma-candrika. Srila Gurudev ki jai, Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Sri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Sri Raga-vartma-candrika ki jai, Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premananda Haribo. Vancha kalpatarubhyashta kripa sindhubhyaiva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Ananta koti vaishnava vrinda ki jai, Gaur Haribo.